Okay, freshman multimedia students, this is Intro to CSS Part 3. So the next challenge has to do with selecting by class, and so I think I might fold this in with the other assignment that has the selecting by ID, so that there's the second challenge, and then the project travel page will be its own little thing. So this should be kind of a brief video for the challenge that has to do with selecting by class. So the last video went over how to select by ID, and this one will be something different for selecting by class. So here's how it goes. We'll play the video, and then we're going to go to the challenge, and then we're going to go try it. So let's play the video now.
Let's take a look at our web page. It's got these top headings, has this paragraph describing rabbits, and now it actually has multiple paragraphs with the lyrics to my favorite song about rabbits. Last time we styled the first lyrics paragraph using an ID. But now that I have multiple paragraphs with lyrics, I want them all to have that yellow background color. How could we do that using what we know so far? The first thing we learned how to do was to select all tags of a particular type, like with the P selector. But that colored all of the paragraphs, not just the paragraphs with lyrics. We need something more specific. Well, then we learned how to select tags with a particular ID, like selecting the paragraph with the rabbit song ID. But that only selected the first paragraph. We can't add that ID to the other paragraphs because we're not allowed to use the same ID on multiple tags. If we wanted to select the other paragraphs, we'd have to give each of them new IDs, like song lyrics 2 and song lyrics 3, because every ID must be unique, and then add rules for each of them. We could do that, but wow, that is a lot of work. Every time we added a new verse to the song, we'd have to remember to add another ID to the HTML and another ID to the CSS rules. And if we added hundreds of verse, it would just be exhausting. Well, guess what? There is a better way, and it's called classes. A class is basically a way of assigning a particular element to a group. And you can assign as many elements as you want to a group. To add a class, we need to add a class attribute, like we did with IDs. First, I'll just delete this ID since I'm going to replace it. And now I've got my cursor in the start P tag. I add a space and write class equal quotes. Now we need to come up with a class name, a nice descriptive one. Let's call it song-lyrics. Type that in there. What other elements should have this class name? Well, all the other lyric paragraphs. So we'll just go down the page and add the attribute to each of the paragraphs. Okay, great. Now we're ready to add the CSS rule. So we go back up to our style tag and delete the ID selector that we had before since we're replacing it. And now we need to come up with our class selector. Well, to start a class selector, we use a period, a dot. And then we write the class name after it, song-lyrics, and then just like always, curly braces, property, colon, value. Ta-da! All of our lyrics now have yellow backgrounds. What would happen if we capitalized the S here? It doesn't work, because class names are also case sensitive. It matters which letters are lowercase and uppercase, just like with IDs. What would happen if we used a hash sign instead of a period? It doesn't work, because then the browser thinks that song lyrics is an ID, and when it can't find anything with an ID attribute of song lyrics, it gives up. What would happen if we put spaces in our class name? Well, that doesn't work either, because classes can't have white space. And as we'll find out later, a space means something very specific in CSS land. So we'll just fix this back. And one more time. When we want to add a class, we come up with a class name, we add it to our class attribute in the HTML, and then we write a style rule starting with the period and the class name. And now your CSS can be classy.
Okay, so the big takeaway is that using the class tag for the CSS is going to give us the ability to select more than one piece of information. So when we use the hashtag in our CSS section, that was for a class ID, which would allow you to do one set. And if we were to try to do that for each paragraph, you would have to have a different name for each ID, so it's like kind of triple the work in this case. So if we just create one class, we're able to do all song lyrics at the same time. So if we go to the challenge, here's what we have. This web page displays the lyrics for a song about apples and bananas. There are already classes on most of the words about apples and bananas, but there's no style for those classes yet. Add two style rules, one that sets a color for the apples class and another that sets a color for the bananas class. So you can see down here that they created a class for apples and bananas for all of these things. And so up here, I'm just going to undo what I did so you can see how to do this. We're going to redo the styles. So this is what it looked like before. If I want all of the apples, or in the class of apples, because whatever is apple after the class is going to get changed, we use a period, and the class name is apples, and we do our curly bracket, and then we're going to do, what did they say, not background color, I think it's color, colon, and then let's say blue, and that changes all the apples to blue. And now if I want to make one for bananas, dot bananas, curly bracket, color, colon, and let's say pink. Who doesn't like pink? How about red? Oh, pink would have been okay. I just have to put my closed bracket. That's how to say closed bracket. And there we go. So they created the classes for me. The class was apples, and the second class was bananas. And I went into my style section here and used the styles .apples to color all of them blue, which is multiple selections, and used .bananas as a class to color multiple iterations of the word banana pink. And that's how you choose by class. I will attach this to the assignment in Google Classroom so that you can watch and do the challenges. See you back in class.